Welcome, everyone, to another episode here of Greasy Skillet Sessions. I'm, of course, Robert Radmanovich, and today I've got my buddy, Brad Makoecki.
Thanks for having me here today, Rob.
Absolutely. As you guys know, at Greasy Skillet, what we are always looking to do here is kind of give you a little bit of an inside view in terms of how our webinars, our workshops, et cetera, are actually put together. They look slick when we're actually doing them. But it's a ton of work to get there. And you folks may know from our workshops, Brad, as the my partner in crime here that you'll see up there talking and shucking and jiving as we talk about how generative AI works. So, Brad, what are we here to talk about today?
We're here to talk about macros today, are we not?
Macros. What do we even know about macros?
I'm not sure. I'm hoping to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. So macros are definitely that sort of scary thing that everybody who's ever used Excel wishes they knew more of, but surprisingly few people actually know what they are. There's usually that kind of one person in the office who's the guru that you go to that builds these cool applications, and then the rest of us are just kind of left in the dark.
And everyone's frightened as to touch it or mess with it.
Totally.
Don't break it.
Don't break it. Don't do anything to this Excel sheet. So today what we're going to do is we're going to run through, first of all, a little bit of basics as to what macros are all about, but secondly, how we can actually use ChatGPT, Copilot, generative AI to build out macros, and really cool how to actually use them to interpret what on earth a macro in an Excel sheet does so that you don't have to be freaked out about breaking it, right?
Now we can decipher Bob from 1995's macro.
Exactly. So as an example kind of what macros are all about, macros are really generally used to do automations. And often everyone thinks of this as a Excel thing, but they can work in Word, PowerPoint, any Office product. And in fact,
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you can put macros into PowerPoints, you can put macros into Word. And as an example of like a Word-based one, you know, a typical thing that I wish I had figured out way longer in life is, let's assume we're doing something like a sign inventory. So we've gone through a neighborhood, we've collected a whole pile of signs, right? Photos of all these street signs, and you've got some sort of report where what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to pull up a template, something like this. And what I want is great, I've got this sign inspection sheet. I've got 100 different signs. I'd like 100 different PDFs, one for each sign made of sign ID, type of sign, latitude, longitude, condition, last inspected, and a photo.
Rob, can we hire someone to do this for us?
Usually it's some sort of poor summer student that you end up getting to do this, right? You're like, okay, cool, welcome, you're a new grad. Now I want you to copy and paste this 100 times into this Word document.
Thanks for coming out, kid.
This is your future as a professional. Now, let's assume that we've got, for example, a spreadsheet where we've got the sign IDs, sign types, latitude, longitude, condition, etc. Well, what we could do is we could actually write a macro that will end up automating this for us. So the way it works, for example, is in this Word document, we have this macro, we go up, we hit macros, we see a macro called generate reports, we hit run, we go and we're going to pick, it's asking for where the photos are, cool, there's the CSV file of all the photos. It's going to ask for a folder where all the photos exist, cool. We go okay, and we're going to let this thing churn and run, and you can see it's flashing and doing stuff and going all crazy. But at the conclusion of this macro, reports have generated successfully. We're going to go back to our directory, and cool, we've actually now got individual PDFs for every single
awesome.
time. Yeah, right. And if you'll notice, we added a little trick in the macro where the condition is actually color coded. So that little box is green is 5, etc. Now, you out there might be saying, like, isn't this just a mail merge? And sure, You could do certain repetitive tasks like this with a mail merge, but you wouldn't get the level of detail and control as with this macro. And so now we've saved that summer student a whole summer of copying and pasting, and hopefully they can go off and do some higher value work somewhere and just hit this button and let it cook. So that's great.
That's impressive.
But how do we actually make this macro? And to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to run through with a brand new worksheet. And the first thing, if you're looking at this Excel sheet here, is figuring out, hey, I don't even know where I'm supposed to go.
Yeah, where do we start?
Yeah, what are these macros?
I don't even see a macro button.
There is no macro button. So how are we going to do that? We go over to File, and then you always have to help me with this.
Oh, down to Options.
Options.
Customize ribbon.
Customize ribbon. And then we take a look on the right-hand side here, and lo and behold, cool, Developer tab is clicked off. And this is often a default here. So I'm going to click Developer on. And
it's not called macros.
Not called macros. It's called Developer. That is right. And so away we go. We've now got this. We've got this thing. And the easiest way to get into macros is actually, first of all, to do this like record macro thing, which will literally simply record all the keystrokes you do while you're doing something that's repetitive. So, we're going to go with a really lame example. Let's assume that what I'm trying to do is replace the contents of this cell. So we're going to say boot, and we're going to say scoot in cell B here. And what we want,
it's like a boot, scoot, and boogie.
Yeah, and what we want is we want to end up being able to copy and paste these. So B goes into A and A goes into B, right? So this is going to be just some Control C, Control V, right? Copy, paste, away you go. Now, cool, this is a really lame example to macrofy, but let's figure out what happens if we go record macro. So we've hit record macro. It's asked us for a macro name. We're going to call this swapper.
And this is for everyone who doesn't know how to code, write a macro. They can just do it,
exactly.
Record it.
Basically, if you find yourself redoing something over and over and over again, you can use this record function to do this. So we're going to, okay, swapper. Now, you'll notice that recording has changed to stop recording. And so now everything I Control C, Control V, do, bolds, whatever, it's going to remember. So I'm going to say, great. To swap these around, I'm going to have to click on this. I'm going to copy. I've got to drop that somewhere so it lives somewhere for a moment, right? Because I can't overwrite both. I'm going to copy this, paste there, and then copy this, paste that there, and then I delete there, right? So now I've swapped scoot and boot. And actually for bonus points, I'm going to say that what I end up doing is changing the text to red, right?
Neat.
Cool. That's done. I'm done doing what I want to do. I go stop recording. And now what I can do is I can go over to macros. I see I've got this swapper macro. If I hit run, changed the font, right? You'll notice it, because the font was colored red, now everything is going to be colored red because it copied the red font. If I change these all to black, let's go back to developer, run that macro again, swapper, so now it should go scoot boot. Away you go, right?
Red scoot.
Let's see what it's actually doing. So we go over here, we hit edit. This brings up,
where are we now?
This brings up our Visual Basic for Applications window. So this is a window that's kind of hiding out often behind Excel. And what you can see, the macro, a couple things. First of all, you can save the macros by going save here. You can import macros from different Excel sheets. This is all advanced stuff that we go through in our intermediate macro course. But the important thing right now is to note that we've got something here called swapper. We've got this is the program, this is the function that macro is all about. And then all of this stuff, so anything that has a single quotation mark like this is a comment Excel doesn't read that. That's just there for you to describe what's actually going on. You could add in comments, things like that.
So if I'm a non-coder, that's where I can write my own notes.
Yeah, so you could say, did this right? So anything, love this, it worked great. Great, Brad. Right? So anything that's in this is not part of the code, away you go. But when we take a look at what's actually going on the at the outset, this looks really, really scary, like, oh no, I'm getting into coding. But the nice thing about macros is this all makes kind of some sense if you start like, you do have to take a moment, but it does make sense compared to what we did, right? Like, hey, ranges in Excel are the names of cells. So I went to A1 and I selected it. Yep, I did that. I then copied it. Yep. I then clicked on D1, I selected it, and then I pasted there. That makes sense, right? That was my very first little action. Then I went to B1, selected it, copied it. That was the next thing. Then I went back to A and pasted what I did there, right? I then went back to D, copied that, went back to B, pasted it over, and so on and so forth. And then you can even see that at the end when I changed the color of that font there, great, I selected A1 and then did this mysterious with selection.font, did some monkeying abouts with the color, obviously. I don't have to understand exactly what, like, I don't have to know how to write it. I just have to be able to analyze the logic in it, and it makes some sort of.
But at the end of the day, I don't like to code. I really don't actually have to understand any of this, right?
Totally. The only problem with the recording is recording your own macros is limited to something that you're actually doing, which means that making really complicated macros becomes challenging because usually we're not just copy pasting, changing fonts, etc. And actually, if you think about it, one of the actions that we probably don't want is if we want this to always be highlighted red. Right now, our macro doesn't really work because at the end of the day, it's always dragging that the red text over, and it becomes hard to edit this because if I don't know anything about macro programming, I'd have to re-record the whole thing and erase the previous one. So how can we actually use ChatGPT to do this? Well, this becomes really cool. So what we do is you can pop up ChatGPT or Gemini or DeepSeek or whatever you want.
This is where the magic happens.
This is where the magic's going to happen. Once you bring up your AI of choice, you can pick your various models. Right now, for a simple macro, all of these are gonna work. These O4 minis and O3s are supposed to be better at developing algorithms that will actually translate into code. So let's go to O4 mini just for fun. And what you're going to do, just as in any prompting, is explain what you're trying to do, right? So you're going to say something like, I have an Excel sheet where value in cell A1 and a value in cell B1, and I would like to swap them.
Is it smart of me, Rob, just to put my Excel sheet into ChatGPT?
Well, so like if you drag and drop your Excel sheet into ChatGPT, first of all, you've always got your issues in terms of like, is that a great idea from a security perspective, right? So it really depends on the terms of service with regards to the license you have. Moving spreadsheets anywhere onto the web and dropping them into applications is kind of a bad idea in general, unless you know what you're doing. So you always have to make sure you check in with your IT policies and things like that. The other thing is dropping your Excel sheets directly into ChatGPT ChatGPT cannot read the macros within the Excel sheets.
Oh, so if there are Excel sheets within, or what macros within the Excel, it won't necessarily see them or read them?
That's right. You would have to put the Excel sheet and then copy and paste the macro code separately, right, to make this whole thing work. Anyways, so in this case, great, I've got an Excel sheet where I have this value, and I'd like to swap them. Also, when the swap happens, I would like cell A1 to be colored red, while B1 is colored black. Can you produce a macro to do this? Great. And so you're going to ask it,
is it up to the task?
Is it up to the task? And it sure is, right? So it now produces this code. And what's very nice about the way that ChatGPT works is it also tells you how you can actually do this. So it'll provide like implementation notes, like, hey, put this in your VBA editor by going Control-Alt F11, insert module, and then assign it to a button. And then I could ask, well, how do I do that? And expand, expand, expand.
Is that what we were working in with the developer tab?
Yeah, so what we're going to do to actually put this in, I'm going to go very nicely copy. I'm going to go back to my Excel sheet. I'm going to go macros. I'm going to go edit, right? And then if I wanted, either I could just delete this whole old one, or I could put in a new function here, give it a different name, either or. I'm going to nix this one because I don't like it. I'm going to paste the macro.
Ooh, look how pretty that is.
Right, and notice that like it gave you some descriptions as to like what's actually happening here.
Neat, I don't have to decipher the code.
I don't have to decipher the code. Instead, what I do is I'm going to go save. I'm going to save this whole book here. One other pro tip to watch out for is when you're saving, you need to save the Excel sheet as a macro-enabled workbook. And I'm going to call it Swapper. And away we go. Now, if I go back to my Excel sheet, let's change these all to black text to begin with. Now, back in Developer, if I go macros, I've got swap and color. I go run. Ooh, what is going on?
Beautiful. We highlighted the cell instead of the letters.
Right?
Text.
So, pretty odd. If you do notice, let's go macros again here. Run. It's changing, it swaps it, but it's done something awful with regards to the thing. So
colors are right, but not necessarily the implementation.
Yeah, it's filled the background, right? So I've got two options. Either what I'm going to do is I'm going to go edit here and start looking into like, okay, what's actually going on here? It's probably something with regards to this interior.color. But the easiest way to do this is just go back. You're like, that kind of worked. And as we've heard lately, OpenAI is not happy with us being polite to AIs because all those tokens have to be processed, right? But I still stick with it. That kind of worked. The text got swapped, but it seems that instead of the text colors changing, the fill of the cells were highlighted instead.
No highlighting on the cells.
Can you update?
Just the text.
So just text turns red and black, but the fill stays no fill. All right, and because ChatGPT can kind of remember your prior conversation, it's gonna go in and
within this particular chat string.
Within this particular chat stream.
So if we had started a new chat, it might be confused as to what we were doing without any context per se with that particular statement.
Yeah, although frankly, I don't use, like, I store my conversations, but I never have memory on because I don't want ChatGPT to start, like, pulling stuff. Like, I need a little systematic process here. So I turn off memory in ChatGPT. I never have that option set. And that way, all of my conversations hopefully are individualized. So in this case here, we've got now updated code. What I can do is I just simply copy, go back to this, go Control V, save it, and let's see what ends up.
You can already see the changes.
And let's
complex
see what happens here. So we're going to go macros, swap in color, run, scoot, boot, no problem.
Success.
Boot, scoot, no problem, and away you go. So now, like, okay, this is a pretty simple example, but if you remember the Word document that we just did a moment ago, that was done in exactly the same way of saying, hey, I've got this Word document with this template and these photos. Hey, ChatGPT, please make me a thing. The one important for those of you who've actually taken the workshops that we do, a couple key pro tips that we find when you're dealing with macros is, first of all, a little bit of critical thinking goes a long way. Like what we did here of just kind of like, hey, this is a swapper, let's actually just drop this in, works great when you are, bear with me one second. That works great when you're just simply actually having an easy thing that you want to do. But in reality, what we encourage folks is to like go through a digital thinking process. Like define your scope here. What's the problem that you actually are trying to solve? Be aware of what kind of edge cases and so forth you might be looking at, because otherwise you're going to find, and you found this.
Not to just start building without a plan?
Yeah, building without a plan ends up in an awful bathroom renovation where you're like, oh yeah, I just really love the sink out of here. And then suddenly you're like, oh no, my plumbing doesn't work. Like, don't take a sledgehammer to this right off the hop. That's the worst idea. And one of the things that we do suggest is that folks use, for example, this digital workflow development scratchpad that we offer, which you can download off the website, where it actually walks you through, like, okay, who are your users? Because in these complicated macros, you don't know, is it going to be your bill in 1990, and in 2025, someone's going to be using your macro. It would have been really nice if Bill was aware of that their Excel sheet was going to live for 35 years, and that random people they never met were actually going to use it. So documentation is really nice, right?
Everyone's favorite.
Yeah, right. Actually thinking through why are we doing it? You know, one of, I think, the favorite slides that you go through in the workshop is, of course, this whole concept of, like, should you even be automating this task, right? So, again, you want to sit down and think about, like, before you hop in to build this super cool macro to solve your very, very particular problem, is like, great, how often am I actually doing this? How much time do I shave off every day? And that tells me that, great, because I hate control pasting these little swap numbers, that saves me, what, a second? And I might do that, even if I do that every hour of the day. Every hour of the day, I have to swap two numbers. After 3 years, I'm only going to save 1.7 hours. Great. In this case, it took us 10 minutes to build this macro, so we did good savings. But this is really weird that we were able to successfully make a macro in under an hour. Usually these things take an awful lot longer.
And I guess you have to get better at estimating how long it takes you to do the task. And as you develop more, you'll gain a better understanding of how long it might take you to develop a macro.
Totally. Absolutely. Right. And that's why, we do have a lot of fun in those practical workshops in terms of showing people how to actually go through that. One of the things that I think we should chat about at our next session here is this is kind of a real basics of how to use ChatGPT to build a macro. But another thing that's really fascinating is how we can actually now use ChatGPT to analyze macros. So if you get a spreadsheet from somebody now, you could take that code, you're like, I don't know how this works, and drop it into ChatGPT, have it analyze it, look at it, and debug it, right? If you've got a problem. We were lucky, we had a very minor logic error here, but in practice, you might end up with some syntax errors, stuff like that.
It'd be handy when Bob from 1995's macro is broken and he's 10 years since retired.
Totally. So we're going to leave it at that for today, but at our next session, we're going to invite you back to the kitchen here, and we will work on how to debug macros using ChatGPT and how to analyze them. So thanks, everybody. Really appreciate it. We'll see you next time.